Alright, Dragon Ball Super fans, now episode 126 just dropped, so if you haven't watched the episode yet and don't want spoilers, please click off the video, but thanks for supporting the channel. Now, this video is really about the fact that I feel like this show is wrapping up the way I feared it would, and that's because everything is so rushed. Now, this episode wasn't a bad episode, but I do believe last week's episode was a lot better. I felt like there was more epicness in Toppo using his God of Destruction training to reach that new level of power and just literally beating the crap out of Frieza and having 17 go on the run, as opposed to this episode where, as a Vegeta fan, it was awesome to see him use the final explosion again and just prove that he's not willing to let go of everything like Toppo was in order to achieve victory, because I feel like that was a major shift in character. Because remember, in Dragon Ball Z, before he died, he told Goku to let go of his soft-heartedness and just fight cold-heartedly against Frieza, because his soft heart would get him killed, but in the end his caring personality is what helped him achieve Super Saiyan back on Namek. And now you have Vegeta saying that you let go of your justice in favor of destruction, and that's it, you did it for power. And that's a major turnaround from his character, because remember, he let go of everything to achieve Majin Vegeta status in order to fight Goku after he came back from Otherworld for the day. So you just really see a big shift in Vegeta's character, and I like that. I mean, the fact that he was fighting for his family as well as his promise to Kaba in Universe 6, I like that aspect of it, because it really reminded me of that episode, one of my favorites actually, Vegeta's Respect, where he does like an inner monologue while Goku's fighting Kid Buu. And I think one of the things that really stood out to me was that, what was the reason, Kakarot, why you were so powerful? Was it because you had a sense of duty to protect your family and loved ones? Because I thought that's where you kept getting this endless supply of breaking your own limits. But then I found myself with a family of my own, but my power didn't increase at all, which is ironic, because he thought of his family, and that's why he powered up and was able to overcome Toppo. I really like that aspect of it, because Vegeta was actually challenging himself by fighting Toppo. He was fighting the old Vegeta with his newfound sense of camaraderie and pride. Well, not just his newfound sense of pride, but his drawing power from the ones he cares about. Let's just put it that way. And the thing is, I really didn't like how it felt rushed. Here's why. The first part of the episode wasn't bad. I don't care that the first 2 minutes seemed to be cut directly from last week's episode, because that happened a lot in Z, where one episode would end and then the opening of the next episode would be like the last 1 or 2 minutes from the previous episode. I'm not really against that. It's not as annoying as, just horrible animation. But I didn't like how the first half of the episode was kind of a repeat of last week, where, okay, we get the fact that Toppo is surrounded by destructive energy, so we don't need to spend like the first 8 to 10 minutes just playing cat and mouse again between Toppo and 17. And I was a bit disappointed that Frieza was already woken up from being unconscious. I thought he would be out for at least the next 1 to 2 episodes. And then when it was just cheering on Universe 11 and it was maybe Goku and Vegeta left, Frieza would come out and then try a sneak attack, or just be like the last man standing, because I thought he would pull like a Mr. Satan and just be either knocked out or out of the way while the two main guys go at it and then knock each other out. And it's like, oh my god, he won by default. He's the strongest in the universe. But I did find it a bit puzzling that Frieza was already up and about. And I did like the fact that he uses telekinetic powers like on Namek, throwing rocks. Well, I believe it's called like psychic rock throw in the video games, as well as that paralysis energy orb he used on Goku, when he threw the giant like cliff at Goku and he blasted his way out of there, but then Frieza caught him off guard, trapped him in the energy ball and kept kicking him around, and he said that if this ball touches anything aside from my body, it's going to explode. I really like that. But again, it was just another demonstration of, okay, Toppo's being pelted with rocks and energy blasts, but they're doing nothing. Can we get on with the next thing? And I did like the dynamic between him and Jiren, even though it was just very brief. It was kind of like a head nod, like, okay, I'll take one, you take the other. And then Vegeta was taken on by Toppo, and this is where we get to the second part of the episode, was actually what we've all been waiting for. Because honestly, I thought it would have been a situation where Vegeta would have been squaring off with Toppo during the first 5 minutes. 17's in trouble. Frieza's knocked out. Goku knows it. Is like, okay, Jiren's tough, but one of us has to think about numbers here. I feel like Vegeta would have been that guy instead of Goku, because Goku's all about fighting, 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 rather than coming up with strategy in terms of winning outside of victory for himself, because Goku would rather push himself to the limit and fight somebody stronger alone, as opposed to, okay, well, there's 4 of us left. So if you go fight Toppo and try to beat him and help out 17 and Frieza, we can help, run out the clock. That's something I feel Vegeta would have thought of rather than Goku. So I was originally thinking that this episode would have opened up, with 17 on the run, Frieza knocked out, Goku and Vegeta fighting Jiren, and then they decide, okay, one of us has to go fight Toppo, or else we're going to be double teamed. Because imagine if Toppo knocked out 17 and Frieza, he would have showed up with Jiren to fight Goku and Vegeta, and they would have been screwed. So imagine if Vegeta used the final explosion to defeat Toppo, and then an exhausted Vegeta and Goku would have been the only ones left. Unless they fused, they would have been screwed. But I did find it disappointing that, during the second half of the episode, it just felt like the fast forward button got pushed. Like, as I said earlier in this video, I did like the dynamic of Vegeta challenging his old persona, a warrior who only cared about victory, and was willing to throw away everything in order to achieve it, because Vegeta would never throw away his pride. True, he let go of his quote-unquote petty attachments in order to get Babidi's mind control power so he can become Majin Vegeta, but at the same time, he never threw away his pride. And there was a lot of banked animation in this one in terms of reused shots, especially when Toppo was using his energy blast. But I didn't mind it. The final flash versus Hakai was pretty good, but I just didn't like how easily Toppo, it was like last episode, no pun intended, he was like a god, like in terms of just how powerful he was. One blast cracked the arena. Him powering up was enough to change the entire backlight up, like the background of the world of Void. And now Vegeta's easily taken him out just by a little bit of a speech in terms of, I'm going to use the people I care about as a, way of drawing into my power. Whereas you threw everything away in order to gain destruction, but it's not enough to beat me. I felt like that was a bit too easy. I wanted those two to fight a bit longer, so Vegeta being exhausted will feel more believable. The final explosion was great to see. Don't get me wrong, it was epic. We even had the flashback to when he used it against Majin Buu. And I love the fact that Piccolo was the one that's like, oh my god, it's that attack, isn't it? Because he was there when Vegeta used it. I just felt like the fight should have been drawn out a bit longer so Vegeta would know that, oh my, okay, fine. You know what? I have no other choice but to use this attack. And again, I don't want to take away from that moment, because as a Vegeta fan, it was epic. But overall, I do feel like Dragon Ball Super has retconned a lot of things aside from fusion. It seems to me that a lot of attacks that led to the user dying in other series like Dragon Ball and Dragon Ball Z have been retconned to, hey, if the person using this deadly attack is powerful enough, they'll just lose a lot of stamina as opposed to dying. I mean, remember the Mafuba? Like Master Mutai Ito, Master Roshi? If they used the technique, they would die. If they succeeded or failed with the technique, they would die. Now Roshi used it like, almost 3 times in a row in the Tournament of Power. He was on the verge of dying, but he was just heavily lost energy and stamina. And I believe in the Dragon Ball Super manga, Goku went SS Blue to use it on Zamasu, but it didn't work because he didn't have the seal. So when Zamasu was released, Goku just resorted to Super Saiyan God because, oh yeah, I used a lot of ki or stamina using the Mafuba, so I can only use Super Saiyan God. However, it should be more than enough to, push you back. Now you look at the final explosion, which was a technique that exhausted all of Vegeta's ki in Dragon Ball Z, and he died. But here it's almost like the video games in terms of Vegeta literally exhausted all of his energy. But I believe in the video games, if you use final explosion like in Budokai 3 or the Tenkaichi series, you would be left with like 1 hit point. I feel like that's the same thing with Vegeta. Well, in Dragon Ball Super, I feel like he's going to be back to full strength within 30 seconds because keep in mind, in the episode preview for 127, it looks like he and Goku are at full power. Well, excuse me. It looks like they're in their blue forms when they're against Jiren again, considering that they were both knocked out of their blue forms back to base at the end of this episode. So with that being said, I did like Toppo powered up last episode more than this episode, just because I feel like the threat of God of Destruction Toppo was overcame too quickly. I wish the fight between him and Vegeta was a bit longer. We would have had more dialogue, because I really did like the aspect of Toppo throwing away his justice just to be a destructive force of nature to survive, as opposed to Vegeta, who was willing to embrace who he was in order to defeat his opponent, because Toppo is literally how Vegeta used to be. But with that being said, I don't want to make it seem like I hated this episode. I didn't. I just felt like it was a bit lackluster in some ways. However, I do understand why a lot of things are being rushed, because there's only like, what, 5 episodes left. So what did you think of the episode? Did you think like I do in the fact that Toppo was defeated a bit too quickly, and the fact that Jiren pretty much called him pathetic was a bit unnerving? So are they apparently making Jiren into a tool now, overconfident that he's going to lose? We'll just have to wait and see. So please subscribe if you haven't done so already, and I'll talk to you in the next video.